What's going on all? Thanks for tuning in once again. Let's talk Canelo versus Charlo fight recap. Listen, as I mentioned in the pre-fight, this was a fight that I was very unsure of in Charlo's case, going up in two weight classes, being inactive. It certainly showed, that the power was a big factor in this fight. I mentioned that Canelo is a hard-hitting puncher with one of the best left hooks in boxing. But not only that, he's also got power in the right hand, which we saw. That was the shot that you could say dropped Charlo. Charlo took a knee after getting the right hand in the 7th round. It seemed like it was a very one-sided fight. Canelo was clearly the more dominant one. He was clearly the more experienced at that weight. Like I mentioned, 168, that's his weight class. And it just seemed like he was the far superior boxer here. His timing of his punches, the way that he basically fought at his pace, fought at a comfortable level where he was able to not get gassed out. He was able to control the fight without really getting tested. That's what I saw in this fight. It seemed like Charlo was happy to just survive, just like the Joseph Parker-Anthony Joshua fight. Parker goes the distance. Seems like he was just happy to survive, There's no urgency in wanting to go for a knockout in the later rounds. He understands he's losing the fight, clearly losing the fight in this one. Charlo's clearly losing the fight. I only gave him one round. Even his trainer saying, hey, listen, you're clearly losing. You've got to do something. What are you going to do? And it seemed like he had no answers at all. And I believe it's because the power of Canelo was the big difference. I believe that Charlo didn't want to take risks. He didn't want to lose by knockout. He knew that he was losing on the cards. And his whole thing was just to survive, In the round 5, he did catch him a couple of times. He was trying to press him back, for a minute. But that was it. Once he understood that Canelo wasn't even in his 4th gear, he was still finding his rhythm. By the time he caught him, that was the fight, that was the fight. And, it was a complete mismatch, and it was a complete, completely dominant performance from Canelo. And I believe it was, like I say, it was because of the power. I just think he couldn't take those power shots, and he couldn't really fight his fight. He felt Canelo's power, and he thought, I'm going to survive this one, go the distance, and no urgency. Sure, he says he's proud of himself and all that, but hey, the fans wanted to see a more competitive fight, at the end of the day. And that wasn't the case. It wasn't a competitive fight. It didn't look like a competitive fight throughout the whole fight, except for one round. And like I say, there was no urgency. There was no risk taking from Charlo. It was just basically go on the ropes, getting cornered, and then, trying to stay away from Canelo. That's all it was. That's all I saw anyway. So it was a disappointing one to watch, to be honest. I was hoping for a better, a more competitive fight. I was hoping that I'll be watching a more competitive fight where maybe Charlo does win, 5 rounds, but to see Canelo really walk him down like that just says a lot that, he's just on a different level than Charlo. And that was the thing, I wasn't sure myself if Charlo could fight at 168. I was saying in the pre-fight that this guy needs to have a tune-up fight I need to see where he is at 168. He may not be the same, and it was, quite clear that he wasn't. He doesn't really belong at 168, maybe 160 possibly, but with his brother there, that may not happen, who knows, but I don't think 168 is his lane, especially if Canelo, Benavidez and people like that are in it. I just think that he can't handle the power. He needs a couple of tune-ups anyway, if he's going to even think about competing at high level. So, I mean, big props to Canelo. I thought he done a good job in this fight, pacing himself a bit better than his previous fights, and constantly coming forward with the power shots, and just picked them apart. I mean, at the end of the day, regardless if it was competitive or not, you've got to take your hat off to Canelo beating the undisputed champion. It's another name on his resume, another champion that he's beaten, you could say. So, I mean, and not only that, he's staying active. Who's next for Canelo? There's a lot of talks of Terence Crawford versus Canelo next. I know that Crawford doesn't want the Charlo fight. He was disappointed, just like I am, disappointed of the competitiveness of the fight. It wasn't really a competitive fight at all, especially for two undisputed champions going head to head. You would expect more of a fight, and we just saw one-sided, dominant powerhouse. Canelo was the better counterpuncher. He was the more busier fighter. He was the more aggressive fighter, and that's all it was. One guy wanted to win more than the other, and the other guy didn't take enough risks and couldn't handle the power and couldn't handle that weight. He mentioned that the weight was a big difference for him as well. He said a lot after the fight, but the thing I didn't agree with him was saying that he's proud of himself. I mean, sure, being proud of yourself to survive, that's cool, but, at least put it all on the line, take the risks. I think that's more of the fight that we wanted to see, more risk-taking, especially in those last rounds, those last rounds where the trainer says, hey, listen, you have to take risks, you're going to lose. He had to take the risks. So, I mean, that's my take on it anyway. Canelo wins a dominant performance. I was wrong about the knockout, but I think that was because of the fight itself. One guy's looking to survive. So, I mean, I think if he did take more risks, Canelo would have knocked him out. But at the end, Canelo got the knockdown. He won convincingly. And, I mean, the fight I definitely want to see next is Benavidez, and then possibly Crawford after that. With the Crawford fight, I want to see him have a tune-up at a bigger weight as well, just to see how he is. But that's my take anyway. Leave yours. Look forward to the comments, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.